Shalom uvracha from the streets of Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. With the blessing of Hashem, we are studying today the Haftarah of Parshat Pinchas in our second Haftarah series. Our Haftarah is taken from the very beginning of the book of Jeremiah and deals with the initiation of Yirmiyahu into the world of prophecy. I would like to focus on the last three words of chapter 1, verse 5, wherein we read, Hashem is talking to Yirmiyahu, God is speaking to Jeremiah and says, Navi lagoyim nitaticha. I appoint you to be the prophet of the nations. You are the one to speak the prophetic words of God to the nations of the world. Although there are other ways to understand Navi lagoyim nitaticha, we have other commentaries on these words. For instance, the first commentary in Rashi learns Navi lagoyim, that you are the prophet of the Jewish people who are behaving in a non-Jewish way. Navi lagoyim, the language of Rashi, li Yisrael shehem nohagim atzmam kegoyim. That's possible, and surely that's one approach in rabbinic literature. However, it seems that the simple reading of the text of Navi lagoyim nitaticha, it means that Yirmiyahu is to be prepared for speaking prophecies not only to Am Yisrael, but to the non-Jewish nations as well. Undoubtedly, Yirmiyahu is not the only prophet to speak Nevuah prophecy for other nations. However, Yirmiyahu is the only prophet in Tanakh who at the very time of his initiation is charged with this sacred mission. Rabbi Dr. Joseph Breuer, his beautiful commentary on the Sefer Yirmiyahu, Rabbi Breuer expresses it so well when he writes in his commentary on our verse, and I quote, moreover, as Navi lagoyim, Yirmiyahu's work was to be not only for the Jewish people, but he was to offer himself as an earthly vessel for the well springs of divine truths that were to emanate from him for the enlightenment and edification of all mankind. We find in Tanakh prophecies geared for the non-Jewish nations and for the non-Jewish world. The reason for that is very simple. For Hashem, for God, is the God of the entire world, not merely the God of Israel. As we read in numerous verses in Tanakh, Hashem is interested in bringing the divine word to all of humankind. As just one example, let's study for a second some verses in Psalm 47, known to some of us as the introductory psalm before the sounding of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. In many communities, they read it 7 times before Tkiyat Shofar. And this theme is emphasized over and over again. I'm reading Psalm 47, verse 3. Melech Gadol al kol haaretz. God is the king of the entire world. 47:8. Ki melech kol haaretz. 47:9. Malach Elokim al goyim. We all recall the prophecy of Jonah to the non-Jewish city of Nineveh. According to one reading, Jonah wants to escape. Jonah wants to avoid this mission, for he would much rather be the one prophesying to the Jewish nation, rather than to be the Navi to the capital city of the wicked non-Jewish Assyrian Empire. Yehezkel HaNavi spends many chapters in Ezekiel, speaking words of prophecy regarding other nations. Read, for instance, chapters 25, 26, 27, 25 to 32. Almost each of those chapters contains messages for the non-Jewish world. In a very informative discussion of this very theme, Da'at Mikra, in the introduction to their commentary on Sefer Yirmiyahu, enumerates the many prophets whose prophecies were geared and directed, and were not limited only to the Jewish people, but were geared and directed to the non-Jewish world as well. If indeed our entire nation is the nation of Kohanim, priests, Ba'atem Tihiyuli, Mamlechet Kohanim, our messages have to reach beyond our Jewish communities, for we are always praying for Tikkun Olam, not merely Tikkun Yisrael, but as we recite at least 3 times every day, L'taken Olam V'malchut Shakai V'chol B'nei Vasar Yikra'u V'shmecha, to bring about the betterment of all humankind, to rectify the entire world with levels of divine awareness. We read Jeremiah 1 on the first Shabbat of the 3 weeks between the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. Between Shiva Asar B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, this is the first Shabbat of the 3 weeks. It is during these 3 weeks that we contemplate the great loss of our holy temple. It is during these 3 weeks that we long for the perfected Jerusalem to be. But perhaps one of the messages of the 3 weeks is that we await that great day when multitudes of nations will join in the true service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We long for the great day when the Beit HaMikdash temple will be rebuilt, the awesome day when the sanctified Beit HaMikdash, when the mountain of the temple, when the Temple Mount, will be so spiritually filled with magnetic pull that all nations will rush to be there. V'naharu elav kol hagoyim, v'halchu amim rabim. When Yirmiyahu, in his monumental work, speaks words of prophecies to more than 20 different nations. More than 20 nations are mentioned in the book of Yirmiyahu. There is a subtle reminder to each of us to strive to bring the word of Hashem to the entire world. Indeed, each of us is to learn from the charge that Hashem gives Yirmiyahu. In his or her own way, each of us is to follow in the pathway of Jeremiah. Navi lagoyim nitaticha. Thank you so much. Shalom.